All right, so what I did first was I looked at my photo reference, whether I'm looking at it on my iPad or in this case, I printed it out. I get a lot of good color, by looking at it on my device. But what I wanted to do first was I wanted to find what colors I needed to use for this. So obviously I have blues, but if you look, I've got varieties of blues. I've also got a couple different yellows. I've got a couple different yellows and yellow greens, which I know how to make a yellow green, all right, because you can see up here there's like a little bit more of a yellow on the tips of the feathers and a little bit darker green. Inside here it looks white, but it actually kind of has like a cream color. So what I did was I was able to go into my 48 colored pencil set and find the color palette. So I'm working with this as my color palette. What I need to do next is, based on the procedure sheet for part 2, it says look at the photo reference and begin to figure out the color formulas. Well, I figured out the basic colors, and what I did with that was, and I made a little color key. Right here on my finished piece, I set it up and I put down a little swatch of color, and I labeled them by, based on the name of the colored pencil. So that's going to give me a good idea of the palette that I need to use for the assignment. All right, so with step 2, use overlapping and different pressures while using the techniques to mix the colors. Label the color formulas that work best by writing which pencils you used and in what order you use them. So to find color formulas, it suggests working on the outer edge of your drawing. Try to keep this area clean, all right, as best as you can. So if I look at this, how do I make certain colors? Well, I can see there's a light blue in there. It's not bright blue. So obviously, if I look at my blues that I have up here, I've got a light cerulean blue, I've got a true blue, I've got a peacock blue, and an indigo blue. So in developing these colors, if you have a printed one and you want to, if you have a printer and you want to work on the outside of the printed one, you can do that. So I can kind of compare the colors. Or if you're working from your device, you can obviously do it on the outside of the paper here. So if I'm trying to recreate this blue color here, I can do what I want to do with it this way to try to find that blue color. And I can kind of see that color formula, maybe if I put a little bit of white on top of that. And this is the true blue color. So I'm seeing how that true blue color actually matches some of what I have in here. Over here, I've got a little bit of a blue-green. Even though I wrote down all these colors here, I may or may not use every one of those colors. So I can see that depending on the pressure that I put, this is actually a pretty good way, if I burnish over top of the true blue with the white, to give myself the lighter version of this. Now, instead of trying to say, all right, well, I got all these little tiny spots in between the feathers, I can't try to do that right now, because if I'm burnishing, you can see I lose all the areas in between when I go to do the feathers. What I would do in that case is, if I put those blues in using textures and using that continuous stroke, I would come in later, because you see how crisp the dark areas are. If I come in later, right, I got this dark area up against this, I can use the black colored pencil really carefully. Let me zoom in here real quick. If I use the black colored pencil really carefully, right, and try to create the edge of the feather right there, see, the black will cover it. So I can come in with the black. Notice I'm not outlining, okay? We never want to outline. But I can use the black to create some of the shaded area in between the feathers. Like over here as well. If I have a nice sharp black colored pencil, I can put that in after I put the other colors in. See, because if I go over top now, it's just going to shade the black like the warm gray technique. And you can see the difference between these two areas where I put the black down after I did the burnishing with the white, and if I put the black down first. So again, I need to make sure that I'm working light to dark, and I can still come in and I can tighten up some of that texture. And I think that gives me a really good match for some of those colors in the blue part of the feathers. Now, obviously, as I get over here into the blue greens, right? If I get over here into the blue greens, I need to look at what I did when I did my color wheel in creating the blue green. So I've got a really light version of the blue, and I'm going to try some of this spring green on top of the blue to create that blue green. All right, and that's pretty close. I might need a little bit more blue in there so I can overlap. That actually works out really well. Maybe even put in a little bit of white to burnish it and soften it. And then I can look at the black again, right? Where I've got the black coming in, and I can work it nice and carefully in here with a nice sharp black to tighten up the look of the feathers as they come in. So you're going to need to continue to sharpen your pencil as you're doing these. So this is working out the color formulas, as I said, and as I labeled them. So I've got true blue, I've got white on top, and then I have black third. So I got 1, 2, 3. That's my color formula for these areas of the feathers. This is my formula for this area of the feathers in here. So I've got the true blue is first, and then second I have the spring green. And that's my second color formula. All right, so use the color formulas to figure out what colors you're going to need and how and what order you're going to need to put them down. And then I'm going to get started using those color formulas on my final.